Hi, my name is Zachary Hunt, and as a graduate of the Warrington College of Business, I'm here to speak with you today about a three-step method I've developed for evaluating and answering business exam questions. The first step is to identify the components of each exam question. This step refers to the written structure of the exam question itself. The second step is to identify the type of knowledge being tested. This step focuses on understanding the concepts that you'll need to apply to answer the exam question. And the third step is to identify incorrect answer choices and eliminate them. This step involves leveraging the nature of multiple choice exams, which most of this program's exams are, to your advantage. Virtually every exam question can be broken down into two components: the stimulus, which is the information or context necessary to answer the question, and the question stem, which is the statement that directly elicits a response. Typically, the stimulus will contain important cues that you can use to narrow the scope of the question and begin to form a correct response. This is best illustrated by way of example. Here's a typical qualitative question you might see on an exam. Your firm has recently acquired a member of its supply chain and now controls that function under single ownership. What strategy is your firm using? Here, the first part of the question is the stimulus, and the second part, which I've bolded, is the question stem. If you saw this question on an exam, you might first identify that it's asking about the supply chain, which might cue you into integration strategies. Since this firm now owns a member of its supply chain under single ownership, we might then realize that this firm is using a vertical integration strategy, which is the correct answer. We can also use this approach to analyze quantitative exam questions. In this example, the stimulus mentions total assets and total equity, which might mentally cue you into the balance sheet and the accounting equation, which we could then use to arrive at our firm's total liabilities of $3,000. Now that we've identified the components of the exam question, our next step is to identify the type of knowledge we're being tested on. Distinguishing between lower order questions and higher order questions will prime us for the type of thinking that the question requires and help us avoid the feeling of panic that typically accompanies higher order questioning. On qualitative exams, we might see memory questions, which call for simple recall of discrete information, application questions, which require us to apply learned material to new situations or fact patterns, and synthesis questions, which require us to merge learned materials in order to understand patterns and relationships among them. On a quantitative exam, we might see direct calculation questions, which are simple single-step calculations, think 2 plus 2 equals 4, or combined calculation questions, which combine multiple techniques to arrive at one final answer and tend to be more involved than direct calculation questions. We might also see procedural questions, which require us to apply a sequence of techniques in a specific order, or what I like to call math law questions, which test our understanding of key concepts or relationships in math. Finally, once we've evaluated the components of the exam question and determined the type of knowledge we're being tested on, we're ready to identify incorrect answer choices and eliminate them. Often, identifying 3 or 4 incorrect answer choices is just as valuable as identifying one correct choice, and doing so can increase our likelihood of answering a multiple choice question correctly. Although incorrect answer choices are sometimes completely arbitrary, there are 4 recurring forms of incorrect answer choices that professors tend to favor and that you should become skilled in identifying. The first are true statements that do not answer the question. The second are statements with unnecessary or self-defeating language. The third are answer choices that contain exaggerations. Think words like always, never, must, cannot, etc. And the fourth are responses obtained via common student errors. So now that you've learned a strategy you can use to approach business exam questions in general, let's discuss some preparation strategies that you can use specifically for some of the challenging quantitative business exams you'll encounter in this program. First, correct small misunderstandings before they grow into larger problems. Math is inherently cumulative, and if you fail to master some of the early concepts of a course, you'll find yourself struggling to fix gaps in your understanding later on. Second, take time to master your technology. The quantitative courses in this program each use specialized technology. For example, the financial calculator in business finance or Microsoft Excel in operations management that you'll want to become intimately familiar with before your exam. Becoming comfortable and fluent in the technology while you study will pay dividends during the exam itself. Third, work toward problem fluency. In the same way that learning a language requires continuous repetition and forming connections in your brain until words and sentences begin to come naturally, math requires consistent repetition. And the best performing students are those who complete practice problems over and over and over again until they become intuitive. Finally, eliminate the word study from your vocabulary. We don't study math, we practice it in the same way that we would practice a sport or a musical instrument. Simply memorizing formulas or sequences of steps isn't going to be enough to do well on quantitative exams. You'll need to deliberately engage with the material over and over until you feel comfortable enough that you could explain it to someone who's encountering the material for the very first time. In my experience, differences in performance have very little to do with natural intelligence and much more to do with how well one makes the transition from studying to practicing. Once again, my name is Zachary Hunt. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and I encourage you to put forward as much time and effort as necessary to succeed in your business courses. Thank you, and go Gators!